Hello, Prudential Sales Executives, for our video message of the week. All right, this week's message is entitled 3 Tips to Help You Achieve Necessary Price Reductions. All right, we've talked lately about listings coming up, and that's great. More and more listings are hitting the market. What we want to make sure is not only are we taking more listings, but they're saleable listings, and that's what today's message is all about. All right, let's get started. First, I want you to focus yourself on setting the proper expectations right up front. I already know there's agents out there working with the public that will tell them exactly what they want to hear. They tell them that their property's worth X, the seller does, the sales executive will agree with that regardless that it's well over value. I already know that. But still, I want you to keep in mind that you have to set those proper expectations. If you're willing to take that listing overpriced because you're focused that you're going to get price reductions over time and there's motivation within the seller to sell, that's fine. Then you're going to do that. But a couple tips along those lines, or one key tip, is you've got to stay really close to that seller. You got to communicate on an ongoing basis because you don't want that seller to feel you were just waiting for the price reduction. So you got to communicate on an ongoing basis with them all the way through that price reduction so they don't think it's because you weren't following through on the commitment you made. Now, this next tip really will help you with number 1 as well. And that is, I want you to count the number of showings you have on a weekly basis. First of all, you should be communicating with that seller once a week, asking them, how did it go this week? How many showings did we have? And 2 aspects around this. Number 1, you need to determine the number of showings based on your price range, based on the home, the area. How many showings should you be getting per week? The number I've always used, and again, this can adjust based on price range and home, is about 2 to 4. Maybe it's a little bit less if it's a higher price home. Maybe you expect more, because it's really in a great price in an area that has a lot of showings. Whatever that number is, you need to use that as a barometer. Let's say for this example, it's 2 to 4 showings, and you call your seller and there was no showings that week. I need you to be more upset than ever the seller could be. You want to be really frustrated. Don't wait for the seller to be upset about that. You're upset about that. Why? Because no showings doesn't happen on your property. And that is a clear sign that the price is too high. It's one thing that someone comes into the home and doesn't like it. It's another thing where they don't even show up. They don't even look at it because it's out of their price range based on that market area. When you gauge how many showings, it gives you a true barometer, a number that you can build your presentation around. So when you have those 0 showings, you can say, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, we need to meet. I have a presentation at 4, would 6 o'clock work for you that we can get together and really discuss what's going on? Because no showings is not okay, and it doesn't happen on my properties. All right, number 3. Third tip is I want you to always position the agent and the seller against the market. Sometimes we fall into a trap where we position the agent and the market against the seller because we feel we've got to explain to the seller what's really going on out there, and that's a mistake. What you really need to do is you and the seller need to understand what's going on in the market. Remember, just because something happens in the marketplace and it will control where the price needs to be, doesn't mean we always agree upon, what's going on. Have you ever had an appraisal come in low and with all your feeling inside and passion you felt that is not a fair appraisal? This is not a good value on this property. But you had to deal with those situations, maybe specifically if you couldn't get a reconsideration. So just because something happens in the market doesn't mean you have to agree with it. So the overall message here is always position you on the seller's side. And regardless of what's going on in the marketplace, be frustrated in many ways. Have empathy for that seller, that their property is nicer, has more amenities, really should go for more, even though sometimes, based on the market pricing, it won't. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.